Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today, we're discussing the music of A House of Dynamite, which is now streaming in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos on Netflix. The movie is a tense political thriller about a suspected nuclear attack on the US. And although it's not a horror movie, I thought it was one of the scariest movies of the year. If you'd seen it, I would love to hear your thoughts on how frightening you found it. Let us know in the comments what you thought. Well, one of the reasons I found A House of Dynamite to be so chilling was its intense musical score. Speaking with us today is Academy Award-winning composer Volker Bertelmann, who joined us just a few weeks ago for our panel discussion with director Kathryn Bigelow and the creative team behind the film at the New York Film Festival. We posted that conversation a few weeks ago, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. We're grateful to welcome Volker back to Dolby Creator Talks to take a deeper dive into the music of A House of Dynamite with our guest host, music journalist Jon Burlingame. I'll let Jon take it from here.
Our guest is a composer, a pianist, and an experimental musician. He won the Academy Award for his music for All Quiet on the Western Front and was also nominated for his music for Conclave and Lion. He's with us today to talk about his latest score for Netflix's A House of Dynamite. Welcome, Volker Bertelmann.
Hi, thank you, John.
It's great to see you again. This is without a doubt one of the year's most intense edge-of-your-seat movies about what happens with both the military and the White House when a nuclear missile is fired at the United States. Why did you want to score this film?
Well, first of all, I wanted to score it because I got asked by Kathryn.
We're
Which
talking
is
about Kathryn Bigelow.
Yes, by Kathryn Bigelow. And when I received the call and my agent said, "Do you want to go to New York?" Because I was at that time in Los Angeles, do you want to go to New York to meet Kathryn? I said straight away, yes, of course, I wanna do that because I know her films from her earlier films, and I really loved them. I really always felt that they had a very special kind of way of filmmaking, and they were very realistic. That is always a challenge, but also obviously something that makes you a little bit scared because, with films that are so well done and so well researched and so realistic, to create music that is not, taken away of that power, is not something that you just do easily, just, in a second. You have to quite think about it and find like something that works.
Were you called in early, maybe before shooting started, or was it after shooting was completed?
No, it was even already, I would say the first chapter was already in a kind of good shape. And I think they felt like it might be a good time to incorporate a composer and see, what comes out of that. And so, I received the call, obviously, because she said, I would love to show you a couple of assemblies, and I want to talk to you in person about it. And I really loved that approach, which also continued in the whole work in terms of everything was a little bit like I'm used to work in a way that everything has a little bit of time. You need to digest certain things. You also have time to decide. You have a little bit of a chance of looking at things twice, which we know is maybe one of the most important things, because a lot of times my first impression is mostly not, I would say 80%. There is in the essence, it's right, but in the form, it's sometimes not really well done. So a lot of times I have to look at it a second time and make it then work,
Did Kathryn have any specific ideas about what she wanted music to accomplish?
Well, she definitely wanted to have tension arcs in a way, and she wanted to have hit points where the tension, drops. She also wanted to have elements in the film acknowledged or supported. There's, for example, this red triangle that is always appearing in the film as the symbol for the missile that is slowly, traveling, and every time that appears, it in a way shows you where we are at the moment and how much. Then obviously a lot of times the watch or the clock is shown, and so we know okay, we have only 8 seconds left, or 10 minutes, and that these moments are obviously creating anxiety, and also they actually shrink the options. And because it's in real time, the chapters are really 18 minutes long. You get a kind of feel of how long it is in real time when a missile is, launched in near China. Then how long it will take, to reach a city in the United States or somewhere else. And that was for me, very impressive, how short that is, you know, and
And a little scary.
yeah, very scary. And that made also obviously the music, it meant for the music that in this compressed time, you don't want to like put in music on every scene and all the way through. You want to give people the feeling that they are participating and that they are very close to the people who are acting.
What was your overall concept for the music? I heard it a fairly traditional orchestra in the sense of you have strings, woodwinds, and brass, and occasional piano. But I've had the feeling that I was not listening to a traditional orchestra in many ways. I'm wondering about the soundscape that you conceived and why that approach.
Well, I have always a big pleasure for when I'm using bass sounds. I love actually like low frequency, physical, like sounds that are physically touching you, and also that create an impulse on yourself, on your body. So to search for good bass sounds beyond the normal sounds, you always have to, find good players that are experimenting with their instruments and who are also able to go in a very low frequency of their instrument, or they use a different technique, specifically with contrabass players. I work with a lot of times with a contrabass player from Berlin called Jair Klotman. He's himself also a very interesting composer, and I worked from already early before. I think the first film I did with him was A Christmas Carol, where I did like a very dark, textures I did with him, and he's a guy that creates like very very close up contrabass sounds, as well as I recorded a like a baritone sax player that I let hum into the baritone sax. We recorded the humming and the like the sounds that are in a way glissandos, and I love in a way glissandos as a way of expressing like moaning and like a kind of yearning underneath the earth across, where you just feel maybe some souls are asking for attention in a way, and or if it's like animal sounds kind of, or I think these moaning sounds that are in the beginning of the film, and there's a very first one on the plaque, when that comes in, suddenly you just know the box of Pandora gets open, and and then I obviously used a lot of variations of these kind of moaning sounds, but I also try to find sounds that are much more like a sawtooth synthesizer, like where you have some rasping elements in there. So mainly what I do a lot is like layering certain events. I call them a little bit events because it's just a sound drop, and then there's some quietness, and there's another sound coming in. I layer them with different qualities of sounds, like different instruments playing the same thing. And then we double that with, like, let's say 8 contrabasses and 6 cellos that are doing the same thing again. And all these layers together in a way create suddenly a sound where you just feel like, what is that? And why is that? That sounds somehow traditional, but it has also a kind of electronic textural side of it. It is a little bit like it could be also a sound installation in a museum, but it could be also, like the score for a film.
Is this a way of keeping us as a viewer somehow a little bit off balance or maybe uneasy? Things like these sort of moaning sounds and these sort of deep sounds from sort of the bottom of the orchestra. What are you conveying here?
Well, what I'm trying is I keep, I keep sometimes the pace on a grid so that you are feeling you're moving forward, but then I'm destroying the grid in terms of using arrhythmical elements that are suddenly putting you off, and you're just like, maybe your wish of getting back on something that you know is very demanded in a way. You just want to go back on a normal scale, and then maybe at some point I drop the normal rhythm again, and then you're feeling like you're propelling towards something. And the I learned that when I was working a lot with prepared piano, that in the prepared piano sounds there were a lot of random sounds that were out of grid. They just somehow they did what they want. The material was just jumping somewhere and was landing somewhere, and just created a noise which you normally would say, "Oh, sorry, that is a mistake." But because when you leave that in there, suddenly the whole music becomes this mistake becomes a part of the texture that is a part of the music, and I recognize that this is very helpful in with tension, because once you drop something that is irregular, you somehow the brain wants to have an answer to that, and also you get thrown out of your normal listening habits, and then suddenly you are back into the film, and you just say, "Oh, what was that?" Obviously, I had sometimes in the earlier times, I had sometimes sounds that were then considered as being a part of the sound texture of the real scenery.
Did you have these kinds of discussions with Catherine? I'm interested to know if you sort of talked about textural sounds and the kind of things that you're now talking about with me. Did you talk about this stuff with her, and what was her reaction? Was she interested? And was she open?
Yeah, no, absolutely. She was not only this. I think she wanted to work with me because of that. She wanted to get, sounds and music that is much more visceral, and not only, because I love writing melodies and I love writing melodic parts. But this film, for example, I had the feeling demands something that is not classical in the sense of a classical score. It needs much more something that is, giving a hint to something that is like undercurrently happening. And so I try to, I tried somehow to find those sounds. And when I sent the first moaning sounds to Catherine, the nice thing is that she's always like very like wow, or like this sounds great, fantastic. So there was quite an immediate reaction to it, which I really love as a composer. And maybe a lot of other composers know that, is that when insecurities going into your body, and you feel like, oh, maybe that's not right. It always is very hard to get off that track and get back onto a track where you feel like, oh no, I'm doing the right thing and it's safe, and it is something that I like. Also, the director likes, and Catherine gives you very quickly the feedback when she really likes something, and she also tries things out. I mean, we were we had a phase in the creation where we felt maybe the music is too lush, and so we went we worked on some heavier stuff. It was not heavy metal or something like that, but it was really like more rudimental and darker. And then at some point we said, no, I think the emotional aspect of the humanity in the film is one very big element in a way to understand the tragedy of what is going on, and also to understand what is at stake. When you understand the personal life of each person.
I had that feeling, especially in the third chapter of the film, when we actually get to meet the president of the United States, and I had the feeling that somehow the tension may have been less important than the kind of sense of melancholy. There was a
Hmm.
kind of sadness that I felt was sort of becoming more to the fore.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I wrote the first chapter music, which Catherine really liked, obviously they used this music already to temp the next chapters and see how that could work in there and what kind of themes we could use. And so that third chapter was in a way a chapter that was in the beginning meant to be full tension until we see the people are walking towards the bunker in a way. And at some moment when I was composing for it, I had the feeling when I saw the president in the plane, and he was just talking to his wife, and the phone call was breaking up, and then he had this young fella next to him who was just there giving him options, and then there was so much humanity in that place, and at the same time he had to decide in a very short amount of time what he has to do. Like, I felt he might be the most lonely person I've seen, in a film so far, because it was really, yeah, it was hard to see. So I made the decision and said, maybe I can write something more emotional for that scene, like, that is touching. And so I started to write some like very fragile string elements into that part. And then they both, Catherine and Kirk, they called me back and they said, hey, this is actually a total, we actually changed the cut at the end, because this is totally how we love it so much. we love also the ending, how that develops, and and at the same time, there's also a lot of love for musical pieces. I mean, when I send something that she really loves, and there was also always this positive feedback, like we really love it as it is, kind of, which is something that I normally hear when I'm creating a record, and nobody is doubting that the record is the track is okay.
We were talking about the strings, and I'm wondering, because this is the strings are fairly prominent, I think, in this score, and we have one of your sort of signature sliding note thing, where as we heard in Conclave, for example, which I think is another sort of way to keep us a little bit off balance. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about. And I thought your string writing was as complicated and as I'd ever heard from you. So I thought, well, he didn't dash this off in a week and a half.
Well, I mean, I love writing for strings. First of all, I'm a big cello fan, for example. I love actually also percussive sounds from string instruments. I in earlier times I did sometimes just a track only with a cello, as I did with one piano. And so my feeling was that the string arrangements have to be in a way complex, but they also have to be in a way simple in terms of their lines and their movements, and also how many repetitions can a track accept, in a way that before you stop and you wait until you start again, and things like that. I always try to find a way of using an element as much as I can, because I'm a big fan of holding a position for a while and releasing it when I have the feeling it's now time to move to the next level. Then I'm releasing what I have done there, which is the same principle, I think, when you write around one note that is steady. And that is also something that there's something holding in the center, and the music tries to somehow maneuver around it. And I love these kind of situations very much. And the glissando theme is something that I use now in plenty of scores before Conclave, and in Conclave as well. But also I try to find a way of using a different scale and trying to figure out the instrumentation differently, so that it's not like the same gesture. But I love actually glissando gestures. I love them because they create instability. You don't feel like, oh, I know this note. You're just like, where is that going? Where are we moving? And I love that big time.
I get the impression that, unlike most film composers, for you record live instruments and live players doing what you want or need, but then a considerable amount of time, I suspect, is then spent in your studio altering or distorting or changing or modifying music. Is that right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I'm trying to figure out how I can create let's say a new feeling for a film without reinventing myself all the time. I think I mean, composers and musicians, when I'm recording Hauschka records, I really try to also stick to certain elements that I really love. So I try to find things that that I are inventing the score in a way new, or are elements that we haven't heard before. And for example, distortions, effect pedals, manipulations of sounds can help you a lot because they create a lot of interesting overtones and you can just still work with the repertoire that you have on your fingers, and you don't have to because I mean that's the challenge of writing, and also as a composer or a poet, you are sitting in front of an empty page, and you have to, in a way, find something in yourself that is in a way triggering you to research deeper. And I do that either by finding a new instrument, and not to get the pressure on me all the time, like there's a new film, I have to find a new instrument. I try to break the rule as much as I can, so that I'm happy when I find a new instrument and I have a new film. But you have to break the rules, otherwise creativity gets very boring.
The last cue in the film, which begins,
Hmm.
I think, as the end titles start to roll, or maybe just before, um, is piano centric, and the piano
Hmm.
sort of takes precedence for the first time in the score, and
Hmm.
it's so melancholy and it's so sad. And I began to think, is he writing a theme for the end of the world? Now, maybe that's a little
Hmm.
overblown. I don't know, but
Hmm.
there's something
Hmm.
very sad about that last piece of music in the film. I wonder if you could talk
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's sad because it's in a way giving you time to reflect. I would say it's not like something. If I would have been, if it would be just a piece by itself, in a different, let's say, on a record, it might maybe it's not as sad as you think. I think it's much more, and I found out about other films where I had that were very, you know, strongly impactful, and then what I don't like sometimes with films that are leaving you with thoughts that you go straight away into a pop song. I don't feel sometimes that is not not helping in a way to stick with the movie. And so in this case, I had the feeling it is nice to reduce the music to one steady drone and just play this main theme that in the film is played by a string section. Um, every time we have an emotional moment, to play that with just a simple and long stretched lonely piano, and play that maybe at the end, just a pure piano piece, and then it ends, to let people who wants to sit in the cinema reflect about, not about the end of life, I would or about the end of the world. I would rather say it's a moment of reflection about what can we do, what is possible.
One of the best things about this movie is that it leaves us with questions. We are left up in the
Mhm.
air. What happens with the missile? What decision does the president make? All of these
Mhm.
things are so thought provoking. I
Mhm.
think it's one of the best aspects of this film.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean also that there is no finger pointing on someone, because it's not about finding the guy or the person that is guilty. It's more about the overall aspect of what we are witnessing, and who we want to empower, to make these decisions for us in a way, and that's, I think, the main question in there. That is completely up to everyone, themselves in a way to figure out how they want to answer that question. And that's what I really like about the movie, that it in a way creates conversation, and I'm a big fan of that. No matter what, I love to discuss.
Yeah, it's so few movies we get to talk about anymore, where we leave the cinema and then we can't wait to discuss what we've just seen for the last 2 hours. It almost never happens anymore.
No. And obviously, a lot of times you go with a friend that has already an appointment afterwards, or has to leave. And I think this film, and a couple of other films that I've done, had a good kind of open question situation, where you maybe go with your friend somewhere and you end up maybe talking about something completely different, but it in a way creates a kind of flow of thoughts that are very helpful to answer questions about your own life.
Yeah. What's your hope for this movie?
Well, my hope is in a way the same hope that Catherine has. I think that there is a conversation about the topic, that it's at the same time an entertaining movie, that it's not like a movie that people are saying, I would want one more of these kind of dark movies. I think it's much more a movie that I think is encouraging everyone to think about, how the future of our planet can be designed in a way, and that is obviously important to find out who are the people who are designing and who are helping to bring all these things in in control. I also think that there's a lot of hope in there, that there are plenty of and many of people already actively training and keeping things in shape, so that there is no danger. At the same time. So that is also quite an acknowledgement in the film. And I really like that there are both sides. And I hope that this will create a discussion and a lot of good thoughts to make the world a better place.
This is exactly what I think contemporary cinema should be doing. So it's so wonderful to be able to talk with you about your contribution to House of Dynamite. Thank you, Volker, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Jon.
Many thanks to Volker for joining us on the podcast today, and thanks to Jon Burlingame for conducting yet another excellent interview. And an extra special thanks to our friends at Netflix for helping us put this conversation together. Be sure to check out A House of Dynamite, now streaming on Netflix in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. We'll have links, as always, in our show notes. And don't forget to let us know your pick for scariest movie for 2025 in the comments. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you're subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about what we do at Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of this show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Kahn. Thanks for joining us.